Excellent. Okay, so as Bernie said, my name's Pauline Bloom. I'm a research biologist with Ducks Unlimited Canada's Institute for Wetland and Waterfowl Research. And our head office is at Okamic Marsh. It's a great place to work, and I feel very privileged to be there. So today I'm going to talk a bit about how I came to be a research biologist, what the path I took was, what my education experiences are, and other things of that detail. So I'm a waterfowl research biologist with Ducks Unlimited Canada. I have a Bachelor of Science in Biology from the University of Waterloo in Ontario, where I'm from, and a Master's of Science in Waterfowl Ecology from the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. So why did I choose this career path? Well, when I was in high school, I was super passionate about the environment. I wanted to save the rainforests. I wanted to save the old growth forests in BC. I wanted to save the dolphins. I was just passionate about the environment. I loved nature, loved being in nature. I loved animals, all these types of things. And in my high school career, I found biology was one of my favorite courses. I did well at it, and I found it really interesting. And it was a natural step for me to progress into an undergraduate biology degree. I didn't really give it any thought. I just thought, well, this is what I would naturally do because I enjoy biology. I went into my undergraduate degree at the University of Waterloo, and I chose that university because in Ontario at the time, in the mid-90s, it had one of the best cooperative programs in the province. And I knew that I wanted to, while I was doing my undergrad, to also be gaining some different job experiences because I didn't know exactly what facet of biology I wanted to go into. And I know that biology is a huge subject, and I wanted to sort of see what other options there were and what interested me the most. So I had a lot of varied experiences during my co-op program. I worked for Environment Canada, I worked in labs, I worked in doing sort of health science type of work. And then I found that in my upper years of my undergraduate degree, I was able to take more specialized courses. Like your first 2 years of your undergrad are very general biology courses, all aspects of biology. And as you get into your upper years, you're allowed to take more specialized courses. So I started taking courses in ecology, population ecology, and conservation biology. And these really piqued my interest. And I thought, okay, now we're talking. This is where I want to go. So after I graduated, I lucked into a position with a fisheries lab that's at the university. And by lucking into it, I mean I was walking by my teacher's assistant from my animal physiology lab, and he asked me what I was doing for the summer, and I said I hadn't found a job yet, and he was like, well, maybe you would like to come work for us. We're doing some fisheries work, looking at the effects on fish, and seeing how they respond to a coal-fired generation plant and when they output hot water into the river system. So I thought, well, that sounds very interesting, and I'm always interested in seeing the effects of sort of urbanization and industrialization on wild animals. So that was my first taste of working with wild animals, and I really enjoyed it. And after that experience, I moved into my first position with Ducks Unlimited Canada. As a nest search technician, I was on a huge field crew of 15 to 20 people just north of Saskatoon. It was my first time out onto the prairies. We had super long days in the field, lots of very hard work. We were catching and banding waterfowl, searching for nests, taking all kinds of other measurements out on the landscape, and I loved it. I was totally hooked. It was one of the best experiences of my life. I made lifelong friends at that first study site that I was at. And, you know, I think I'm still in this occupation because I believe that the work we do makes a difference. And I like having a job that I feel is having a positive impact and being a positive steward for our wild spaces and our wild animals. So when I think about my career path, I've often sort of likened it to getting into a canoe at the edge of a very thick cattail marsh. If you know the kind of marsh I'm talking about, thick with vegetation, very tricky to get through, not always a clear path, but sort of enjoying the ride as you sort of meander and work your way through finding the path. And when I saw this picture of this mallard hen walking through this wetland with her duckling, I thought, it's similar to that too. We're kind of walking, trying to pick out a good path, a path that's going to lead to a successful life, and but not really sure of the route that we're going to take to get there. So I'll just walk through some of the sort of key highlights of my career to this point, sort of after graduation. So like I said, I started with my first field job with Ducks Unlimited in 2000 as a research technician. So I was looking for waterfowl nests. I was a technician for 2 years. That first field season, I guess I showed a lot of interest. I was super green. I had no experiences. I didn't know how to identify a mallard from a pintail. But I was willing to learn. I had a bit of experience of field work, and I showed sort of just a dedication to the job and to the subject that we were studying. So from that position, my first field position, I was handpicked to go and work on another study, and then this just kind of kept rolling. So I had 2 years of summer field work and field research positions. And then in 2002, the Research Institute there was starting a new study, and they were looking for crew leaders. And because I had already had a few years of being a research technician and I had that experience behind me, I was hired as a crew leader. And so I led crews for 4 field seasons. I was responsible for all aspects of the field operations, from hiring field staff to talking to landowners to gain permission to access their lands, making sure all of our equipment was operational. So we had a big fleet of trucks and ATVs and trailers and all kinds of equipment. And then on top of that, also ensuring that all the data that we were collecting was collected in a consistent manner and in a standardized way, following the protocols that we had established for the study. And that was really important because we have I think we had 4 study sites running at the same time, all with different crew leaders, all with different crews of technical people, and we needed to make sure that all the data was collected in a very standard way. That's a really important aspect of our work. So in 2005, it was my last field season. I knew I couldn't do this forever. I wanted to have a little bit more of a stable life. I knew I couldn't always do field work, and so I knew I needed a change, and an opportunity came up in the Saskatoon office for Ducks Unlimited to cover maternity leave, and this was sort of more of a on-the-ground conservation programs delivery position. I was doing a lot of mapping for different field staff around the province. It gave me a great opportunity to get to know different people within the company and to see other jobs within the company. And that was a great experience for me. And while I was in that position, I started to think about going back to school to get a graduate degree, because I knew I had to get a master's at least to make it and sort of get to a higher level position. So in 2007, I embarked on a master's degree at the University of Saskatchewan. I was very lucky because of my years of experience with Ducks Unlimited leading up to this point, I was able to use their data, and they trusted my supervisor at the University of Saskatchewan to sort of manage me and to manage my data and Ducks Unlimited's data. So I did my master's between 2007 and 2010. It was one of the best experiences of my life. I loved it. I loved Saskatoon. I loved the people that were there. I loved the degree. It was fantastic. Right after I graduated, I was contracted by the research group to do a specific research project. They had money for a 1-year contract, so I could do some analyses and put my new skills of analytical and writing skills to practice. So I did that, and I was looking at sort of the effects of grazing on nesting success of waterfowl, and my end point for that contract was a peer-reviewed manuscript for journal. And so I did that, and from there I moved into a joint position with the research group again and Native Plant Solutions, which is Ducks Unlimited's sort of for-profit arm. It's more of a consulting environment, so I was kind of shared between those two groups. I got lots of new experiences. Again, I met way more people within the company. I learned about Native Plant Solutions, which I had no idea what they did before I started working there, so that was wonderful. And in 2012, I was permanently hired as a research biologist with Ducks Unlimited's Institute for Wetland and Waterfowl Research. So you can see it wasn't a clear path. It was always sort of stepwise, kind of different opportunities, presenting them to myself, and I would sort of take advantage of the doors as they opened. I love that path I took. It's been interesting, it's been varied, it's been challenging at times, but overall I'm very pleased with the way it has all worked out for me. So what specific education experiences are required for this type of job? Well, it all depends on the level of position that you want. You can get into the field as a research technician with a diploma in natural resources or fish and wildlife technician type of programs. If you have a Bachelor of Science in biology or ecology or something similar, you can be hired on as a research technician or as a biologist. If you get your master's, you can be a research biologist, and if you go on to get a PhD, you can be a research scientist, and that also opens doors to the higher level positions within our department and within our company. So you can be the director of national conservation programs, you could be the director of the research group, but you need to have that PhD to get those positions. But the good news is you don't have to decide it all right now. I started out with a Bachelor of Science. After 5 years, I knew that I wanted a different kind of position, a higher level position, and so I returned to school for a master's so that I was eligible for those positions. I like that I did it that way. I know a lot of people that go straight through right to PhD from their bachelor's, but I think this way you know exactly what you want, why you're doing it, and I think you might have more focus when you're at school, and because you know exactly why you're there. And it's never too late. In my department, 3 people are working towards advanced degrees as we speak. We have our GIS technician, GIS specialist, who's working towards a master's. We have a librarian who's also working towards his master's, and we have a research biologist working on his PhD to become a research scientist. So what kind of experiences helped me get to my position? For my current position as a research biologist, I think those 5 years of experience as a research technician doing summer field research and winter data management and mapping, GIS work. I had a familiarity with the data because of those technical positions, and I also have a knowledge of Ducks Unlimited Canada's programs that they deliver and interactions with field staff. So that all gave me an edge to make me a good candidate for my current position. And then going back to graduate school for my master's also opened doors because I gained those analytical and writing skills that you just can't get without that degree. But for my first position with Ducks Unlimited as a research technician, I think it was that I had those co-op job experiences throughout my undergraduate degree, and I had 8 months of fisheries research experience, which included 3 months in Norway. And I didn't know waterfowl identification. I had never worked in the prairies. I had never done that kind of field work. I had never, driven an ATV before. But when I got hired, I showed a lot of interest, a great willingness to learn, and that was recognized. So what skills and qualities do I have that allow me to do my job in the office? I have experiences in waterfowl ecology, geographic information systems, so mapping and spatial analyses, analytical skills, so statistics, but I'll tell you, statistics was not my favorite subject. I didn't do well with it in my undergraduate degree. I did a little better throughout the master's, but we have a statistician on our team, and I rely on her very heavily, as do all the biologists. We have writing and research skills, so I'm doing literature reviews, writing manuscripts for publication in peer-reviewed journals. Data management is critical in my job. We have huge data sets, very complex. So being good with data management is key, and then also being organized, which goes hand in hand with managing your data. In the field, I have waterfowl identification skills now, but I didn't start with them. And being able to use a GPS, being able to drive an ATV, drive a truck, back up a trailer, all those types of skills. Being organized and detail-oriented and very hardworking, and being able to interpret air photos. What kind of things do I see changing in the future? I see that there'll be an increasing use and reliance on geographic information systems, so mapping, spatial analyses, and just an overall increasing use of technology. And I really foresee that there's going to be more and more complex analytical capabilities required from biologists as they go forward. I mean, if you compare a biologist even from the 80s and 90s to currently, the level of analytical skills that they have has changed dramatically. And there's much more complex statistics and modeling that are used. So a typical day for me in my current position, my days are typically the same. I'm doing research, so I'm analyzing data with the goal to publish my results and to guide on-the-ground conservation programming through our department or through the company. My work is mostly independent with colleagues who I can talk to for ideas and advice and for guidance. And then there's also often special projects that come up that are more group-oriented that you can get involved with. There's some travel for meetings and conferences, but because of the current economy, there's been big reductions in travel because it's very costly to all organizations. And we try to reduce that through virtual meetings and the like. What do I dislike the most about my job? Proofing data. It's a necessary evil, but I don't mind entering it, but I hate proofing it. And then when I was a research technician or crew leader, a typical day was, the days were routine, but because you were working outside, no day was ever the same. Always working in a new field with different weather conditions and always new things that were cropping up that you had to deal with. I was working with people all the time, and you're away from home either at a field site or traveling to field sites. We didn't typically work in the evenings, but often on the weekends. So what changes have I seen over the last 5 to 10 years? I've seen increasing requirements for higher education. When I got my Bachelor of Science, I really thought that was going to be enough. I thought that I could just get through with that, but it's clear now that you can't, or if you want to have higher level positions, that you have to go on to get a master's or a PhD. The availability and the types of jobs has changed over time because there's more consulting companies, and I think that's because there's more environmental regulations for industry and those types of jobs. So, and then government cutbacks mean that there's fewer jobs within the government available, and it remains a very competitive field. It's always been very competitive, and I think it just gets more and more competitive. So working at Ducks Unlimited it's very good. We have a casual dress code in our office. We have a 7-hour work day with a 35-hour work week. We get 3 weeks of vacation and 4 weeks after 10 years of service. We get a full pension plan, full health care and benefits package. We have a dog-friendly office, so on those days when it's minus 40 degrees outside, we see a lot of dogs in the office, which is really great. And we have a competitive salary range, especially for professionals, to keep them with the company. One of the things that I appreciate, because I did have many years of contract work before I got on full-time with Ducks Unlimited, is that they do count my time on contract towards my years of service. So even though I've only been permanent with Ducks Unlimited for about a year and a half, I'm just at the point of getting my 10 years of service. So when we're hiring new employees, we have a spot on our website where all the available positions are posted on ducks.ca. And summer positions, so field jobs, are typically posted very early in the year. So you're thinking January and February is when those jobs are posted. So if you're thinking of this, like of a summer field job with Ducks Unlimited, you have to start looking early. And when we're hiring a research biologist, they're looking for analytical skills, writing skills, research experience, field experience, a master's or higher in education, and someone who's hardworking, dedicated, and passionate about the cause. When we're looking for research technicians for different field studies, it's not necessary that you have the exact skills that are required for that position, but really what you want to demonstrate is evidence that you're hardworking and that you have a willingness to learn. We are always looking for people who have experience working outdoors, so if you've had a job in landscaping or construction, or if you grew up on a farm, all of those things are really important, and if you highlight them, we just know that you're used to working outside in the elements, and on all of those positions, you're probably a very hard worker. If you have skills in waterfowl identification or any bird identification, that's great. Highlight those courses, either if it's through coursework, through hunting experiences, through volunteer work. And then also volunteer experiences are great too. So whatever opportunities you can find to volunteer and get experiences, those are fantastic. And then just highlighting what your education is and where you are with it. They also often get special funding for students, so they're looking for students who are returning to school in September. So what advice do I have for someone who's thinking of exploring this field? I would say it's a very competitive field, but it's also a very small world. And a good reference can go a very long way. Like, I feel that where I am today is due mainly because of good references and networking. And if you can get as much experiences as you can through volunteering and summer jobs, that is great. And then just to remember that you don't need to get all your education at the same time or all at once. You can go back to your higher levels as you require them, and when you know what you want and why you're going to pursue an advanced degree. And you never know, your employer may help you achieve the education goals that you need to help you grow in your position, because they want to keep you. And I know in our department and within our company, succession planning is very important. And so sort of bringing in a younger generation of people to train and have ready for when people are retiring is really important, and something that they're always thinking about. And then I'd also say, just persevere. Don't give up. It can be a long road of contract work. It doesn't have to be. For me, it was a very long road, but it can pay off in the end, and it's well worth the trip, and it's very enjoyable.